Space+Stock up+Rebirth+Military Marriage+Sweet Pet+Parallel time and Space+Mild breeding. Lin Yijun is suffering from a terminal illness but does not want to become a broken generation before her death. By chance, a kind-hearted encounter led to the 1970s. What? Do you want me to go to the countryside? Sure, bring the money, tickets, and food. What's not good about going to the countryside? If you live in a room in a big place, you can still get into college in a few years. My own father, my younger brother, and my father's milk are vying for favor. Can they be better than my stepfather, my evil sister, and my white-eyed mother? Make money tickets, make close friends, be happy and joyful. Rich mountains and clear waters in the countryside make people more beautiful. Zebo didn't realize that he was just acting bravely, but by chance he met the one he loved in this life. Comrade Lin, I believe that the prerequisite for our romantic relationship is marriage. Lin Yijun brightened her paws and said, whether you like to talk or not, I still have to make money and pursue a career. Chapter 1. Demolition and Stockpiling. You are listening at novel full.Audio. Individual, 10, 100, 1,000, 10,000, 100,000, 1 million, 10 million. Finally received the payment. Lin Yijun sat up from the bed and walked to the balcony, enjoying the panoramic sea view outside. The sunshine is really nice. She, Lin Yijun, was an abandoned baby picked up by her grandfather, who raised her alone. This year on the 26th, after serving as a livestock worker for 4 years, he became a member of the dismantling generation. After the college entrance examination, she had a car accident while taking her grandfather on a trip with a scholarship. Her grandfather died on the spot. Although she was lame, she managed to survive. The driver who caused the accident was sentenced to prison but did not have money to compensate for the losses. And her grandfather had no children, so she refused the following treatment and was discharged early, using the final proceeds to hold her grandfather's funeral. She doesn't care if her leg is limping, whether it hurts or not. It's better to use this money to make grandpa settle down. Afterwards, Lin Yijun rushed to the last minute to apply for a student loan, locked the door of the supermarket where the elderly had been running for most of their lives, and dragged their still aching legs to the Shanghai Stock Exchange to attend university. After graduating from university, she did not return to her hometown, and there was no one waiting for her to return. Lin Yijun stayed on the Shanghai market with her own determination, intending to save enough money and live her life in a warm small city. After all, the winter in Shanghai is too cold, and the injuries on the legs are always tingling. Unexpectedly, the supermarket left by her grandfather fulfilled her wish ahead of schedule. My hometown needs to be developed and constructed, and the land where the supermarket is located and the mountain behind it happen to be included in the scope of demolition. After several negotiations, she finally received a compensation of 15 million yuan. After signing the agreement, Lin Yijun immediately took out her savings and signed the agreement with a reputable funeral studio. They would ensure that someone would come every week to exchange offerings for her grandfather, and that someone would come to pay respects and sweep the tomb during holidays and festivals. And she packed her simple luggage and returned the house. I left the bustling Shanghai market and moved to the southernmost province of China, Yun Province, where I rented a small courtyard by the sea to live. Here, the 4 seasons are like spring, and the sunshine is so warm that she can almost ignore the pain on her body. After receiving the compensation, Lin Yijun changed into new clothes and planned to go out and have a good meal to treat herself. Lin Yijun limped through the ancient city of Y Province, searching for food, while a fortune-telling stall on the roadside caught her attention. How much does a hexagram cost? She's in a good mood today and just wants to hear some good things, even if it's just to deceive her. The girl's fate is coming to an end, but there is a glimmer of hope. Lin Yijun propped her head up and looked at the blind man across from her. Next, are you going to say that my thread of vitality is with you? The fortune-teller groped in his pocket and took out a bead, handing it to Lin Yijun. The girl's vitality is not in the poor world. But we are destined today, so I will give it to the girl as a commemoration. Lin Yijun didn't know why the blind man didn't take the ordinary path. Does she look so dishonest? Lin Yijun took the bead and looked at it carefully. It was a simple amber bead with a beautiful pattern. Lin Yijun took out 500 yuan and placed it in front of the blind man. Although I know I won't live long, the lies you told are still quite pleasant. I'm happy today, you can take this money and have a few full meals. Lin Yijun put the beads into her pocket and limped away from the fortune-telling stall. The fortune-teller shook his head. Sigh. The world is going downhill, and now no one believes me when I tell the truth, even blind people. However, he is a kind-hearted dying person. After finishing her meal, Lin Yijun returned to the small courtyard and skillfully opened a bunch of medicine bottles, then gathered together a bunch of colorful pills to take. Lin Yijun took a blanket and walked into the courtyard, looking for a lounge chair to lie down and sleep in the afternoon. Sleeping here is more comfortable in this weather. Go home, I want to go home, I want to go home. I want to go to college. I want them all to be okay. Lin Yijun broke out in a cold sweat, but when she opened her eyes, she found herself still in the courtyard. Everything was as usual. The disappearing amber beads in her pocket told her that what she had just experienced was not just a dream. I didn't expect that in a different time and space. I still feel so miserable. I don't know if we can still see. Lin Yijun put away the blanket, locked the courtyard door, and walked towards the ancient city. Sure enough, the fortune-telling stall has disappeared. Lin Yijun turned and left, took out his mobile phone and booked himself a ticket to go home. Time is running out. Go and see Grandpa. In the cemetery. Grandpa, this wine is your favorite drink, I brought it to you. Lin Eucalyptus poured a glass of wine and placed it in front of the tombstone, and the grandfather on the tombstone still smiled kindly. Unfortunately, their ancestors and grandchildren have been separated forever. Lin Eucalyptus sat down next to the tombstone, took out a cup, poured a glass of wine, and looked up to drink. Grandpa, you always said that good luck and bad luck depend on each other before you passed away. So the doctor told me a second ago that I had bone cancer, and I knew there must be good luck waiting for me in the future. Lin Yijun couldn't help but blush in her eyes, took a deep breath, and poured herself a glass of wine. Sure enough, our supermarket will be demolished in just 1 second. Look, what a big good thing it has hit me. Pada. Tears dripped one after another onto the slate in front of the tombstone. Lin Yijun looked up and finished drinking the wine in her glass. But now I can survive and have a big treasure. I just can't come see you again, but I believe we still have fate to meet again. Lin Yijun poured all the remaining wine from the bottle in front of the tombstone, knocked her head 3 times before leaving without looking back. Grandpa, I'm leaving. A gentle breeze blew through the cemetery, and a petal landed on Lin Eucalyptus's shoulder, seemingly responding, let's go, live well. Grandpa has been watching CI. After leaving the cemetery, Lin Yijun directly booked a plane ticket and flew to Liaoning province. After getting off the plane, she immediately found a leasing company to rent a 5,000 square meter warehouse. Lu Junxiao, who is in charge of this business with the leasing company, has revealed his teeth. The warehouse is located in a remote and large area, and no one has come to rent it. I didn't expect to encounter such a villain and rent for 6 months at once. Lin Yijun rented a car and headed straight to the largest grain and oil market in the area, starting to stock up. Boss, are your products new or not? The landlady saw a young girl, and although it was strange for such a young girl to visit the grain and oil market, she still enthusiastically introduced her. Don't worry, girl. It must be new grain that has just arrived, and the oil is also freshly made. If you don't believe me, I'll take you to take a look. Okay. Lin Yijun followed the landlady to the storage room behind her. Girl, you can open any bag yourself and make sure it's fresh. Lin Yijun didn't hesitate to open several bags of rice and xiaomi beside her. Well, the rice has a strong aroma and a good color. Lin Yijun looked at the oil products next to her again, and the quality was also good. Lin Yijun helped the rice bag next to her and stood up, handing a list to the landlady. Can you see if you can gather all the items on this list for me in a week? The landlady took the order and looked at it. Our family has enough of it. It's definitely enough. Miss, are you sure you wrote this order correctly? Lin Yijun didn't hesitate and pulled out his bank card from his bag. I didn't make a mistake, could you just say how long it will take to get it all together? The landlady didn't expect this young girl to have such a big pen, which could easily weigh tens of thousands of pounds. The rice, noodles, and legumes are fine, but you have to wait for the oil. I'll add a shift to squeeze the oil for you. I'm sure we'll make it in half a month. Lin Yijun was not hesitant either, and directly signed a contract with the landlady, paying half of the deposit. When I was planning to leave, I saw the dry goods placed by the landlady at the door and said, "Landlady, do you have enough dry goods?" The landlady walked over. My cousin used it as a display item for me, and he specializes in making it. Auricularia and shiitake mushrooms weigh about 1,000 pounds, but if there are fewer dried bamboo shoots, they weigh about 500 pounds. Lin Yijun flipped out the card that had just been put in her bag and said, "Could you please give him a call? I'll take all of it." 20 minutes later. The landlady and her cousin on the side looked at the distant car, both feeling a bit incredulous. Is this big order really theirs? Chapter 2. Crossing. You are listening at novel full.audio. Lin Eucalyptus took a direct detour to the nearby vegetable and fruit fresh market and seasoning store. After checking the quantity, 4 orders were handed over as usual, and the account was also reduced by 2 million. After coming out of the seasoning store, Lin Yijun opened her notebook and looked at it. The most basic food, clothing, housing, and transportation are guaranteed, and now it's time to stay. Lin Yijun found a hotel next to the wholesale market and stayed there. The next morning, she went straight to the wholesale market to inspect the goods and deliver the documents. The money in the account flowed rapidly, and Lin Yijun stayed in Liaoning province for more than half a month, spending a full 8 million yuan. And as she continued to collect and retrieve items, she gradually became familiar with the space. This space was astonishingly large, and it seemed as if time was still inside. It was like taking out things as they were put in, so she also purchased many semi-finished dishes. This process also confirmed her speculation that there were no living creatures in the space. But it's already enough. After the goods arrived, Lin Yijun immediately left Liaoning province, but the warehouse still had to be rented, otherwise so many things would suddenly disappear. She was afraid of arousing suspicion. Lin Yijun went on to Kyoto and rushed to several major shopping malls before starting her crazy shopping spree afterwards. She flew to Jiang province and according to the list she had already drafted, she secured the spot and inventory of several seafood markets. When the account was only 5.2 million, Lin Eucalyptus flew to the new province to purchase a large quantity of cotton and dried fruits. A lot of dairy products have been stocked in Mongolia province until the landlord who rented the small courtyard called her. "Xiao Jun, when will you be back? This courtyard is almost flooded by express delivery." "Miss Yun, I will go back the day after tomorrow. Could you please help me take care of it for 2 days?" "Okay, come back quickly." After Yun Jie hung up the phone, she immediately received a call from the courier station, and as expected, it was Xiao En's package that arrived again. How much did this girl buy? After hanging up the phone, Lin Yijun took the large bag from the pharmacy clerk's hand and said, "Thank you." "It's okay, take your time." Lin Yijun would buy various daily medicines, as well as gauze and cotton swabs, from the surrounding pharmacies every time she went. She dare not purchase these things in large quantities, so she can only do so in this way. When Lin Yijun returned to the small courtyard, covered in dust, she happened to encounter Yun Jie, who came to deliver the package to her. Xiao Yu, you're back. Are you on a trip? You look much better than when you first came. Lin Yijun touched her face and said, really? I didn't even pay attention. Thank you, Sister Yun. This is a specialty I brought from the new province. Take it back and try it. After exchanging greetings, Lin Eucalyptus began a long journey of unpacking packages. The small courtyard is located in a remote area, so she can confidently unpack and collect items, and directly use her consciousness to classify and organize them in the space. Bed sheets, mattresses, military coats, kettles. It took Lin Yijun 3 days to unpack these parcels, pack up the remaining cardboard boxes, and deliver them to the courier station, earning over 1,000 yuan. It can be imagined how many parcels she has bought. Lin Yijun passed by a stray dog adoption base on her way back to the small courtyard and donated over 1,000 yuan in her hand and the remaining few thousand yuan on her card to the base. Miss, would you like to adopt a dog? These puppies are all very clean and have been vaccinated, so they will definitely not bite people. Lin Yijun waved her hand and said, no need, I just hope you can add a meal to these little dogs tonight. The owner of the base picked up the furry child pulling on his shoes and smiled, don't worry, I'll definitely add them to the meal. Lin Yijun also donated all the money with confidence because she saw that these little dogs were very close to this keeper. Well, are you busy? I'll leave first. Hey, take your time. The base administrator looked at Lin Yijun's distant figure and rubbed the head of the small dog in his arms, saying, Mao Qiu, we've met a good person. We'll have dinner for you tonight. Wang. After returning to the small courtyard, Lin Yijun packed all her things and put them into the space. She wrote a farewell letter and placed the key on the dining table. She also doesn't know what her body will look like after leaving, so it's better not to stay in the courtyard and cause trouble for Miss Yun. After leaving the small courtyard, Lin Yijun deliberately walked further until she arrived at a secluded riverbank. Lin Yijun casually found a large willow tree by the river and sat down, looking up at the sky above, where the stars were shining brightly. I didn't expect to be lucky enough to see so many stars today. TSK, good luck. Lin Yijun closed her eyes and communicated with her consciousness the imprint left by the soul in her mind. The imprint began to shine, and Lin Yijun's consciousness suddenly fell into darkness. Eucalyptus, just sign here. Oh, why are your hands so cold? Your child won't have a fever anymore, your face is burning red. Director Li, why don't you take this child to the hospital quickly? As soon as Lin Yijun woke up, she felt her body weak and weak, surrounded by chaotic sounds, and a person desperately pinched her arm. It was also this intense pain that kept her awake. The child must come and sign first, and then take the child to the hospital after signing. Lin Yijun struggled to sort out the moment from her memory and immediately blinked, tears streaming down her face. My arm hurts so much, please don't pinch me. Although Lin Eucalyptus's voice was filled with a sense of powerlessness, it still maintained a volume that everyone around him could hear. Although Aunt Li is old, her eyes are still sharp. At first glance, she saw Wang Chunyi pinching Lin Yijun's arm and immediately shouted, Wang Chunyi, what are you doing? Director Li, is this how you two treat your child? Li Yanzhua felt something bad when he heard Aunt Li's loud voice, and when he saw that there was a lot of activity around him, he wanted to join in. In my heart, I secretly scolded Wang Chunyi for being brainless and not knowing the hidden point. Li Jie, how could it be? With Eucalyptus feeling dizzy, she asked her mother to pinch her to keep her awake. We also feel sorry for the child, so please help us. Please do it quickly. Aunt Li watched as Lin Yijun, supported by Wang Chunyi, had already closed her eyes and couldn't even wake up. This child has fainted. What else are you going to do? Please take the child to the hospital first. Pretending to faint, Lin Yijun couldn't help but mutter, take me to the hospital. This couple may want to quickly complete the procedures and take her on the road. Lin Yijun finally fainted with peace of mind when she heard Aunt Li's loud voice. Aunt Li's gossipy nature, coupled with the strict procedures for educated youth going to the countryside in Kyoto, requires them to confirm and sign in person. She doesn't have to worry about being thrown onto the train while feeling dizzy for the time being. Hiss. I don't know how long it burned. Dizziness. Wang Chunyi is supporting Lin Eucalyptus, who has completely fainted. I don't know what to do. What else should I do with the procedures now? Li Yanjue couldn't help but feel a headache as he watched Wang Chunyi stand still in place, but he still had to make this scene a reality. Li Jie, let's come back tomorrow to handle the procedures. Chunyi, help Eucalyptus out quickly, I'll go ride a bike. Oh, good. Li Yanjue spoke up, and then Wang Chunyi got up and helped Lin Yijun, who was unconscious, walk out. Aunt Li couldn't help but shake her head as she watched the family leave. I don't think my biological mother is as good as my stepmother. Sigh, the next one, she said when Lin Yijun woke up again, although her body was still a bit weak, her mental state improved a lot. Lin Yijun propped up her body with the hand that had not been injected. Hiss. Li Yanjue didn't do all his acting this time, so he threw himself away and left. Are you awake? Nurse, could you please pull out the needle for us? We are still in a hurry to be discharged. Chapter 3. Brown Sugar Eggs. You are listening at novel full.audio. Lin Yijun saw Wang Chunyi walking and carrying a lunchbox, and a hint of complexity and sympathy flashed in her eyes. If it weren't for this mother's dereliction of duty, she wouldn't have had the opportunity to come here and be reborn. But in this time and space, Lin Yi's mother at the eucalyptus stand is also unlucky enough, not as good as being abandoned by her parents since childhood. Yes, the owner of this body is also called Lin Yijun. In this parallel time and space, when Lin Yijun was young, Wang Chunyi inexplicably divorced Lin Onghua and threw the 2-year-old Lin Jianhua to her ex-husband. However, she married Li Yanjue with her 5-year-old Lin Yijun and moved to the capital as a result. People say that with a stepfather, there will definitely be a stepmother. For Lin Yijun, it was her own biological mother who gradually became someone else's biological mother. The other people in the machinery factory didn't understand that although Director Li had a daughter, it would take some effort to marry a young and beautiful girl again, but it wasn't a big problem. Why is this so attracted to a rural woman who still has a daughter? Although Wang Chunyi did look good when she was young, the heavy workload also faded away a lot of her good colors. Li Yanjue has always said to the public that Wang Chunyi is good at taking care of household chores and likes children, which complements him perfectly, and the two children also have a companion. But who would have thought that Li Yanjue's purpose in marrying Wang Chunyi was just to find a substitute for his daughter and a free nanny for the father and daughter? He is unwilling to take on the position of director, so he always puts the call to action in the factory first. In this era, the factory called for educated youth to go to the countryside, but he only had one daughter. He has been married to his ex-wife for 7 or 8 years, but after having Li Jinli, his ex-wife has never been pregnant again. For this reason, the couple also went to a large hospital for a private examination. The doctor said it was his physical problem, and having this daughter was a stroke of luck. If his ex-wife had not passed away due to illness, Li Yanjue might not have had the idea. But since he has this opportunity, he must take the path that is most beneficial to himself. Wang Chunyi, who comes from the countryside and looks decent but lacks education, has become his best choice. She is easy to control and has a rural household registration. She also has a daughter who is about the same age as Lily by her side. So there came this marriage. Wang Chunyi realized that pie had fallen from the sky, and after getting married, she naturally did everything herself. In order to please the Li family father and daughter, she also learned to ignore her own biological daughter. Li Yanjue said he didn't want to force the child, so Lin Yijun didn't change her surname, but as for barely moving to the point where even the household registration of Lin Eucalyptus has not been moved. Lin Yijun has never changed his mind. Li Yanjue said outside that if the child doesn't want to change, he won't change. Everyone is a family, which has earned him a good reputation. Unfortunately, Wang Chunyi still believed it. Every day, she raised her voice and asked Lin Eucalyptus to give way to Zhao Jinli and show respect to Li Yanjue. Little did they know that Lin Yijun had not been asked to call by Wang Chunyi. The first time she called, Li Jinli smashed her forehead with a toy and it took several days for her to disappear. Li Yanjue pretended to reprimand and said a few good words for Li Jinli. But children have the most obvious perception of good and evil, both pure evil and hypocritical evil are the same. Wang Chunyi only knew how to care for her stepdaughter so that others would know she was a good stepmother, but she never noticed that her daughter had become increasingly silent. May I ask, in a completely unfamiliar environment, she can only rely on her own mother, and as a result, even her mother has become someone else's mother. Who else can she rely on? Lin Yijun silently grew up to the age of 16. After graduating from high school, she couldn't go to college, so she relied on her own efforts to get into a position in a food factory. But this only hope was forcibly taken away by her mother, and she gave it to Li Jinli, who had been staying at home for a year after taking a break from school with a smile on her face. And because she couldn't get back from work, she cried for a whole day and even developed a high fever. However, no one cared about her. Lin Yijun was half deceived and half forced to sign a consent letter to go to the countryside by Li Yanjue's hypocritical lies and a little maternal love given by Wang Chunyi. But it wasn't until she was sent on the train to the northwest that she didn't see Wang Chunyi coaxing her into buying canned peaches to satisfy her craving. And Wang Chunyi also forgot that the day she sent her daughter onto the train was Lin Yijun's 17th birthday. So Lin Eucalyptus came to the unfamiliar northwest in a daze. If it weren't for the pitiful sharing of food with her companions on the way, relying solely on Wang Chunyi to pack her backpack, she might not have been able to hold on to the northwest. Lin Yijun stayed in the northwest for 4 years, and her once beautiful face was covered in dust every day, which was also to protect herself in an unfamiliar environment. But in that era, the land yield in the northwest was low, and relying on forests and eucalyptus trees, one's thin and weak body could not earn a few wages. Even if Lin Yijun tried to save more, she ultimately fell into the year before the resumption of the college entrance examination. This girl, who never gave up studying even when she came to the northwest, stayed forever in the unfamiliar northwest and never returned to her home where no one cared about her. Until the moment she closed her eyes, Lin Yijun didn't know that someone had been thinking about her. What Lin Yijun didn't know was that Li Jinli, who had taken over her job, had a good life and found a good marriage. Li Yanjue, who was full of lies, rose step by step. I don't know, but when the unfamiliar mother received the news of her death, she shed a few tears of sadness and threw the letter announcing her death directly to her ex-husband. She began to figure out how to handle her stepdaughter's wedding banquet. What is unknown is that when Lin Yijun, who was only in his 40s, learned of her death, he traveled thousands of miles just to take his daughter's bones home. What I don't know is that Lin Jianhua ruined his future in order to avenge her Lin Yijun's last obsession before her death passed through the barrier of time and space, and fell onto another dying Lin Yijun through amber beads. That's why she came here with that obsession, to the beginning of everything. Wang Chunyi has become accustomed to her daughter's silence, so she doesn't take it seriously. After the nurse took Lin Yijun's needle and left, she opened the lunch box she had brought with her. Drink the congee quickly, and Mom will discharge you. Your Uncle Li is still waiting for us to go to the office to go through the formalities. Lin Yijun took a look at the congee in the bowl, but she believed it except for the few pieces of sweet potatoes. I won't eat it, I want brown sugar eggs. Wang Chunyi, who was just one step away from the ward, never expected her daughter to speak back to her in such a tone. Wang Chunyi suddenly widened her eyes and poked her finger at the person on the hospital bed, saying, "Why don't you know how to get through it? What brown sugar eggs should you eat if you have a minor illness?" Minor illness. She burned for at least one night, and the next morning, these two people insisted on taking her to go through the procedures even though they realized she was sick. Now she has been sleeping for another day before waking up. Is this a minor illness? Lin Yijun flashed past Wang Chunni's hand and said, I don't care. If you don't buy me brown sugar eggs, I won't go to the office. Who was in a hurry when you saw it? Wang Chunni gritted her teeth and said, as for eucalyptus, this hospital doesn't even issue tickets for brown sugar eggs. Why don't Mom go back and make them for you? Let's go handle the procedures first. Lin Yijun stirred the water in the lunchbox with a spoon and said, I see you have it in your pocket. Wang Chunni reflexively covered her pocket. How did the child know? She also thought about buying it later and bringing it home for Jinli to eat. Lin Yijun put down the spoon and looked at Wang Chunni, who was feeling guilty. I want to eat 3, she said, you child. The doctor only issued 2 tickets, how could you be so greedy? You only know how to eat on your own, and you don't know how to think about today's beauty. Lin Yijun leaned against the wall behind her and said, you just received your salary. As long as you are willing to pay, there will definitely be someone willing to sell tickets. Can't you just buy another ticket? You don't want Uncle Li to wait in the office in a hurry, do you? You. Wang Chunni thought of Li Yijun, stomped her feet, and turned around to go out. When she was the only one left in the ward, Lin Yijun sneered, she was already trying to trick Wang Chunni. Given her malnourished appearance, it's highly likely that doctors will issue tickets for brown sugar eggs. I just didn't expect to open 2 more, it seems that I am really weak now. After Wang Chunni arrived in the capital, Li Yijun found her a job tidying up the warehouse in the factory. The monthly cost was not much, only 10 yuan. Li Yijun naturally wouldn't want this little money, but it can't be kept in Wang Chunni's hands either. For the sake of her good stepmother's reputation, all this money went into Li Jinli's pocket. There was no one else in the ward, so Lin Yijun took out a few calcium and vitamin tablets from the space and ate them. At the age of 16, it was the time to grow a body. This body had suffered from leg pain several times at night and couldn't sleep, clearly due to calcium deficiency. Not to mention other nutrients, and the prices in Beijing are high. Li Yijun occasionally buys a few fruits to go home, and even Wang Chunni may not be able to get them, so where can she take her turn? So now, the lack of nutrition in this body is not even a speck. Fortunately, she has stocked up a lot and is now growing her body, gradually being able to make up for it. Bang! Wang Chunni walked in carrying a bowl, and the door collided with the wall, making a loud noise. Let's eat. I really don't know why I'm so greedy. Lin Yijun pretended not to hear and picked up a spoon to eat. Wang Chunni originally wanted to say something more, but the nurse who had previously helped Lin Yijun extract the needle walked over and said, What are you doing? There are still people in other wards, I don't know how to keep a low voice. Wang Chunni suddenly weakened and apologized repeatedly, indicating that she was lying flat in her nest. Chapter 4. Eating Canned Food. You are listening at novel food.Audio. Lin Yijun ate all the eggs in the bowl and took a few sips of sugar water before reluctantly putting down the bowl. As for Wang Chunni's constant nagging that made her think of Li Jinli. Sorry, she just had a fever and her ears are not working properly. Meanwhile, Wang Chunni immediately spoke up, have you finished eating? Then hurry up and leave, don't make your Uncle Li wait in a hurry. Lin Yijun glanced at the wrinkled clothes on her body and said, I need to go home first to change clothes. Wang Chunni couldn't help but get angry when she heard these words and said loudly, Why are you so immature? Do you have Uncle Li waiting there? We have to ride a bike for more than 20 minutes from the office. Lin Yijun noticed Wang Chunni's restless hand on her side and raised her face, saying, You hit me. If you dare to hit me again today, let Li Jinli sign this letter. As for Li Yijun, she didn't believe that this person would wait outside in the cold, smoking in the office would be more appropriate. The machinery factory and office are not far away, just saying it sounds good. The signing of this matter has accurately identified Wang Chunni's lifeline. If Eucalyptus doesn't go, then Jinli will have to go. But how do Yan Zhuo and those people outside look at her like that? Besides, how could Jinli, so smart, go to the countryside? Wang Chunni could only ride her bike and take Lin Eucalyptus back to the Guanzi building to change clothes. Lin Yijun's room was not originally in this house, but rather Wang Chunni built some bricks in the living room after marrying in to create a partition. The small space only allows for a bed, and the few washed white clothes placed on the corner stool, as well as the textbooks under the bed, are all traces of Lin Yijun in this home. Lin Yijun pulled up the curtain and took the opportunity to take out a set of plush warm clothes from the space to wear inside. She also picked out a washed blue pants and a red sweater from the clothes in the corner and put them on the outside. Originally, it wasn't her turn to wear this red sweater, but unexpectedly, Li Jinli would shrink when she bought it and washed it. But Li Jinli was slightly overweight and couldn't fit on, so she was thrown to her by Li Yanzhua, who even said that she had bought new clothes specifically for her. For this, Li Yanzhua gave Li Jinli 50 yuan as compensation, and Wang Chunni also asked Lin Yijun to take care of all the household chores as a gesture of gratitude. Lin Yijun put on an old cotton jacket and walked out. Wang Chunni was already impatient and grabbed her hand as she opened the door, ready to leave. Lin Yijun shook off and said, "Mom, you call Uncle Li back. I have something to talk to him about." Wang Chunni was completely blown up now. Only considering the poor sound insulation in this tube building, she lowered the sound. "What can you talk about as a child? Hurry up and complete the procedures." "Mom, if you want everyone to know how Zhao Jinli's job came about, just keep talking," Lin Yijun said as she reached out and opened the door. Lin Yijun didn't lower her voice, and now that the Chinese New Year is approaching in winter, many people are at home. Wang Chunni dared not let her shout recklessly, so if she came up, she would cover her mouth. But Lin Eucalyptus is not the same as before. She knows right or wrong, she can dodge and fight back. "Mom, why are you hitting me? The volume of this sound is a bit higher, which is not right. The door has already been opened to see what's happening." "Yijun, what are you doing here?" Wang Chunni awkwardly put down her hand and said, "It's nothing. I said the child has returned from the hospital. I'll go call Yan Zhuo back and save time waiting outside." Wang Chunni didn't even need Lin Yijun to say anything, so she ran downstairs. "Aunt Wang, hurry back to your room, it's cold outside." "Ah. Good." After Aunt Wang closed the door, she still couldn't come to her senses. When will Eucalyptus take the initiative to speak? After Lin Yijun returned to the house, he took a few coal balls and poked open the stove to keep warm and boil water. If Wang Chunni were here, she would definitely have to shout and say that she is delicate and that being alone at home is worth burning coal balls. After the water boiled, Lin Yijun washed her face well and took out skincare products from the space to take care of herself. This winter in Beijing is very cold. If you don't apply anything, the cold wind might freeze your face. Lin Yijun washed her head with the remaining water. She has short hair and is easy to wash. Many little girls have fantasized about their long hair fluttering, and Lin Yijun is no exception. But this small request was rejected by Wang Chunni on the grounds of wasting water and being difficult to manage. But after changing her hair, she bought shampoo for Li Jinli to wash her 2 fried dough twists braids. At its root, it was Li Jinli who made a fuss and said she didn't want to have the same hairstyle as her, so Wang Chunni didn't give her long hair. Ha! How come so many people with fried dough twists braids outside have lost Li Jinli? Lin Yijun didn't want to dwell on those unpleasant memories and took out scissors and a mirror from the space to trim her hair. Although she is not good at this job, she has also learned many tutorials, and it is still possible to trim her hair according to her current face shape. This is so beautiful, but it's too thin and the complexion is not very attractive. Lin Yijun looked at the face in the mirror, which was similar to her modern facial features, but she had optimized a lot based on that. After careful cleaning up, she became a beautiful and charming woman, which is why she had to cover up when going to the countryside at that time. Lin Yijun took the mirror and scissors back into the space, walked to the kitchen, took out a bottle of canned peaches from the cupboard, and poured it into a bowl to eat. This is what Wang Chunyi owes the original Lin eucalyptus. The reason why the Li family's cupboard is not locked is also because Li Jinli is greedy, and she didn't lock it for her convenience in taking things to eat. Now it's cheaper for her. Because she had eaten 3 brown sugar eggs before, she is not too hungry now and is eating leisurely. Jiya. A cold breath rushed towards me, creating a sharp contrast with the warmth inside the room. When Wang Chunyi felt the warm atmosphere and wanted to scold, she was stared at by Li Yijun before realizing that the door had not been closed yet. Uncle Li, you guys are back. Look, I calculated that you would come back and burn the stove early. Li Yijun remained calm and said, is that right? Eucalyptus is really sensible, this can is delicious. If it's delicious, Uncle will go to his colleague's house and exchange a few for you and Lily. Li Yijun never beats or scolds Lin Yijun, and he usually lets Wang Chunyi do these things. What for? You're a child with a confused mind today. This can of food is so precious, where can you eat it? Wang Chunyi was about to take it, but Lin Yijun never felt that there was anything she didn't deserve, it just depended on whether you worked hard enough. Pai li pa. Lin Yijun quickly picked out the last yellow peach and accidentally smashed the jar. Ah. What's your hurry? Didn't you promise me this can of food earlier? Lin Yijun nibbled at the flesh on his chopsticks and said, perhaps my mind is really confused. Maybe I burned it all night the day before yesterday. Uncle Li, do you think so? Li Yijun could tell that his introverted and timid stepdaughter was a bit different from before, so he reached out to stop Wang Chunyi and said, what are you talking about? You just happen to be sick and should eat more good food to make up for it. Your mother said you wanted to talk to your uncle about something. What is it? Well, it's not a big deal either. Don't you go to the countryside now? I need 1,000 yuan and an industrial ticket, as well as a grain and cloth ticket. You can just watch and give them to me. Chapter 5. Breaking Wealth and Eliminating Disasters. You are listening at novel full.audio. It is now 1973. As the head of the logistics department of the machinery factory, Li Yijun's monthly salary is only 96 yuan, including some receipts, which can only be obtained in the relatively profitable machinery factories in Kyoto. Lin Yijun's opening can be said to have directly demanded nearly a year's salary from Li Yijun. Lin Yijun didn't give the two people across from her a chance to argue, she didn't want to see them sing red faces and white faces again. That's enough. And she's afraid of spitting out the can in disgust. Uncle Li, if I were to sell a job in a food factory, how much would it cost? 500 or 800. Li Yijun held down Wang Chunyi on the side and helped her glasses on the bridge of her nose, saying, it's already agreed. You can even pass the exam yourself, but Lily can't. This girl's health is not good. Isn't going to the countryside killing your sister? Oh, although Li Jinli is not as tall as Lin Eucalyptus, she still weighs 1.5 times more than her. Is this called poor health? Just for the sake of unspeakable dirty thoughts, it was only natural to sell Lin Yijun's life. Uncle Li, since I came to this house at the age of 5, you have taught me to give way to my younger sister. Therefore, as a sister, I will promote the spirit of respecting the elderly and loving the young. This job is hers for 500 yuan. Lin Yijun finished the last piece of fruit and said, otherwise, I think Aunt Wang, who is in front of me, would be happy to spend 600 yuan on this job. Wang Ling's husband, who lives across the door, is an 8th-level technician in a machinery factory. Wang Ling's daughter, who has just graduated this year, is also worried about not finding a job. Their family only has such a daughter, I believe they would be very willing to give up these 600 yuan. This girl, could it be that she always pretended before? Li Yijun didn't expect to lose sight of himself one day, but the deputy director of their machinery factory is about to retire soon. He didn't seize the opportunity to perform well and add weight to himself. Who knows when the next promotion opportunity will come from? Lin Yijun put down her chopsticks and said, "Uncle Li, don't worry. Take your time to think, but maybe after today, my thoughts will change again. Anyway, I don't want any good reputation." But Lily doesn't know if she wants to carry the reputation of snatching jobs and being insatiable. Lin Yijun. That's your sister. How could you be so vicious? Lin Yijun looked at Wang Chunyi, who was the first to stand up and point insults at her nose. Her eyes became even colder, and her father had not yet moved. She was actually very protective. But, Uncle Li, do you think your wife's words are correct? Debating right or wrong with Wang Chunyi is a waste of words. She couldn't listen to the words of this usually cowardly and gloomy daughter. Whoever Wang Chunyi could listen to, the most efficient solution was to find someone to teach her a lesson. Chunyi. How could you say that about children? Eucalyptus has always been the one who loves Lily the most. Lin Yijun sneered and said, "Uncle Li, these brothers are still good at accounting, let alone the two of us." Lin Yijun stood up and walked towards her small nest. You better think quickly. It's only 11 o'clock now. If you think quickly, we can still go to the office in the afternoon, otherwise, I think Aunt Wang's decision must be faster than yours, don't you think? Eucalyptus. Lin Yijun turned around and leaned against the wall, looking at Li Yijun on the opposite side. Here, what did Uncle Li ask me to do? Li Yijun looked at Lin Yijun in front of him and remained determined, only then did he confirm that the girl was really determined to tear her face apart. Uncle can't take out 1,000 yuan. How about giving you an 800 yuan and an additional 50 pounds of national grain and 10-foot cloth stamps? Lin Yijun refused without even thinking, add 20 pounds of national grain tickets, 10 feet of cloth tickets, and 2 industrial tickets. Otherwise, we won't be able to negotiate. Li Yijun really couldn't laugh anymore. With Eucalyptus, this industrial ticket has already been issued by the factory this year. Uncle has promised to sell it to his colleagues, and they are in a hurry to get married. As the saying goes, it is better to demolish 10 temples than to break a marriage, let alone a kind-hearted and cowardly stepdaughter. But Lin Yijun already knew where that ticket actually went. A few days ago I saw Lily holding an industrial ticket and saying she wanted to buy a new radio. If that's the case. Uncle, you can't be selfish. You should set an example for our machinery factory. Lin Yijun looked at Li Yijun's face, which was like a color palette, turning from green to black and from black to red. It's really amazing. Look at Uncle's memory. My colleague asked me to help him buy it directly. Lily, this child, is just impatient and can't wait for a moment. Lin Yijun said thoughtfully, Uncle, if you could just give me the radio, I don't think it's bulky. When I go to the countryside, you can listen to more news and learn advanced ideas. Wang Chunyi couldn't believe that this was something her own daughter could say. What does this dead girl say? What do you dislike? Radio. She dares to disdain being on the radio. Her mother hasn't even used that thing a few times. Lin Yijun refused to give up at once, and Li Yijun couldn't come up with a better way to minimize losses. In the past few days, there has been a wave of educated youth going to the countryside. If we don't send this girl away at this time, we will have to wait until after the Chinese New Year for the next wave. How can we still show him? You really love studying. If it weren't for not being able to get into college now, Uncle would definitely be willing to smash the pot and sell the iron to support you and Lily to go to college. Lin Yijun wanted to persuade Li Yijun to go to the hospital and have his brain and eye departments checked. No one has the ability to tell lies with their eyes open. Lin Yijun ignored the faint and imperceptible grinding sound in the air, took out a notebook from the room, and neatly wrote a contract. Uncle, when will you give me this thing? Or should we sign a contract first? Li Yanjua's last bit of luck is really gone now. Damn girl, when did you have so many ulterior motives? With eucalyptus, where does a family need to sign a contract? The family's savings should be sufficient, waiting for uncle to go to the house and pick it up for you. First, coax someone to go to the educated youth to sign, and then he won't believe that he can't get the money back after signing. Li Yanjua went to the room to get the money, and Lin Yijun didn't just add to his internal friction in the living room. Then she walked into the room to tidy up her things, leaving Wang Chunyi alone in the living room feeling angry and unsure of who to turn to. Lin Yijun dug out the tattered backpack and stuffed the few thick clothes into it. She also held her notes and textbooks. Besides, there are no items belonging to Eucalyptus Lini in this room. Haha. Lin Yijun took out the yellowed notebook and sat on the bed, writing a letter, while listening attentively to the movements outside the curtain. Whenever Director Li takes out the things, she will go out. Li Yanjua nodded and agreed, and even Wang Chunyi, a stubborn mother, dared not ask about her. Jiya. When Li Yanjua came out with money and food vouchers, he saw only Wang Chunyi in the living room and felt relieved. Perhaps, uncle, you've counted enough money. The bright smile on his slapped face almost didn't make Li Yanjua's heart ache. The total amount of cash at home was only over 800 yuan, and he had been counting how much money he wanted to keep. Li Yanjua raised his stiff arm and handed the money to him. You, let's go then. Lin Yijun carried his backpack on his back, took the money tickets and counted them one by one, clearly showing no trust in Li Yanjua. When the count was enough, Lin Yijun put a thick stack of money notes into her backpack, actually secretly transferring them into space. I casually tore up the contract and threw it into the stove. Okay, let's go. Li Yanjua didn't want to ask his stepdaughter why she was carrying a backpack anymore. This annoying person has always had a strange personality, and I don't know if it's a brain problem. Li Yanjua thought he could send this annoying person away, but to his surprise, Aunt Wang. Are you going to buy New Year's goods? We're not. My mother and Uncle Li accompanied me to handle the procedures for going to the countryside. Grandma Lu. I'm going on a long trip. Aren't I going to the countryside? Look, my mom has packed such a big backpack for me. This tube-shaped building and the surrounding buildings are all for the employees and their families of the machinery factory to live in, and the residents are at least familiar with each other. Li Yanjua's impression of Lin Yijun was originally just eye-catching, but he didn't expect it to be a bad star. Along the way, everyone's diverse eyes gave Director Li a good taste of what it means to sell medicine without regret in the world. Lin Yijun has also successfully overturned everyone's previous impression of her being quiet and not talkative, and has successfully transformed herself into a caring stepsister who aspires to go to the countryside. Oh yes, there is still an impression of her. On the way to the office, Li Yanjua almost kicked out sparks from the car chain, otherwise he was afraid he wouldn't be able to hold back his anger. But Director Li, who sat in the office all day, almost collapsed at the entrance of the office, with a burning pain in his chest. Unexpectedly, his stepdaughter next to him even said something. Uncle, you see that you are currently lacking in labor. I can just take the household registration book and apply for it myself. At present, it is a time of glory for labor. How can one say that there is a lack of labor? Fortunately, there are fewer people outside the office now, otherwise he wouldn't have thought about promotion anymore. Li Yanjua didn't want to make himself unhappy anymore. He was helped down by Wang Chunyi and sat down. This office was the only entrance, and he was afraid that she wouldn't be able to run away. Chapter 6. Signing for going to the countryside. You are listening at Novel Full.Audio. Aunt Li originally commanded this group of educated youth who were preparing to go to northeast China to queue up quickly, but she didn't want to see a familiar person walking in. Aunt Li, could you please help me with the procedures? Using eucalyptus. Lin Yijun handed over the household registration book in her hand and said, it's me. Aunt Lee picked it up with a complex expression on her face. Didn't this girl just fall ill and be hospitalized a few days ago? Look at this pale face, I'm afraid it's just been discharged from the hospital. The Lee family and his wife are really ruthless. Lin Yijun couldn't help but breathe a sigh of relief when she saw several educated youth holding large and small bags of cotton clothes and quilts. Fortunately, I caught up. Aunt Lee, isn't this group of educated youth not enough? Can you count me in? I've packed my luggage. Aunt Lee's pen stopped for a moment. Lin Yijun's grain and oil relationship has indeed been transferred for a long time, just waiting to go to the countryside and have the local team leader handle it. This group of educated youth is indeed not enough. If Lin Eucalyptus could go, the number of people would just be enough, and the few clerks would find it easy. But Aunt Lee looked at the slightly deflated backpack on Lin Yijun's back, but couldn't hold back her compassion and said, Yijun, the place these people are going to is very cold. You can't carry this kind of clothes. Lin Yijun took a sniff and her eyes turned red unconsciously. Auntie, I won't hide it from you either. My biological father is one of them. Now that I'm going to the countryside, I want to go to his side to take care of him and fulfill my responsibilities as a child. That's why I can't bear it even in the cold. Aunt Lee only has one daughter at home. Upon reflection, she also hoped that her daughter could accompany her in her old age and fulfill her filial piety. Oh, forget it. Such a filial child, how could the couple of Director Lee's family be willing to be so disrespectful? Okay, Eucalyptus. Auntie has arranged it for you, and the truck that will pick up this batch of educated youth to the train station is waiting outside. You can pack up and get on the bus. Lin Yijun wiped away the tears from her face and said with a smile, Thank you, Aunt Lee. I've been missing my dad for years too. Little did they know that these words only made people feel that she was pretending to be strong. Aunt Lee stamped the paper in her hand with her official seal, and couldn't help but sigh in her heart. It's better if he went, this father wouldn't be as disdainful of his own daughter as Wang Chunyi. Li Yanjue and Wang Chunyi were feeling a bit impatient waiting outside. Li Yanjue's legs couldn't help but tremble, so he instructed Wang Chunyi to go in and see why it hadn't been done yet. Wang Chunyi was about to enter when she saw a group of people coming out one by one and getting onto the truck outside. Wang Chunyi's eyes are still sharp, and she can see at a glance that the girl at the end of the team is her heartless daughter. Lin Eucalyptus, you. Uncle Lee, Mom. I'm going to the countryside soon, you must take care of yourself. Don't worry about me, I'm going to receive further education from middle and lower class poor farmers, it's honorable. Lin Yijun specially amplified her voice, causing Wang Chunyi in front of her to be momentarily stunned. And Li Yanjue, who was sitting next to him, didn't know what medicine was sold in this Sha Xing gourd. Lin Yijun turned around and quickly followed the other educated youth onto the truck. The driver watched as everyone gathered and started the vehicle. Li Yanjue realized that this girl must have done something else, but unfortunately, her legs were still trembling. He could only ask Li Auntie, Li Jie, how did my family follow me? Shouldn't she be the batch from a few days later? Aunt Lee restrained herself from rolling her eyes, and her iconic loud voice spread far and wide. Director Lee, you can't say that. There's nothing here that should or shouldn't be. Comrade Lin Yijun naturally has to obey the arrangement and go wherever he needs it. After finishing speaking, Aunt Lee turned around and entered the office. It was very cold outside, so she wouldn't be here to accompany this couple whose hearts were so far apart. Li Yanjue finally regained his normal complexion and turned pale again, while Wang Chunyi rarely went up immediately to care about him. Is Eucalyptus going to the countryside now? But she hasn't prepared anything for her yet. Wang Chunyi rarely feels empty in her heart. But isn't this already agreed upon? Why did this child sever ties with his family? Wang Chunyi suddenly realized that since Lin Yijun woke up from a coma, she had only called her mother just now, and had never called her again. Lin Yijun sat in a corner of the truck, holding her backpack and closing her eyes to rest. It's not that she doesn't want to inquire about the situation, the key is that her voice just now and this obviously out-of-place backpack have created a striking image for her. Let's close our eyes and rest for a while. After a while, she went to the train station and had to go to the nearby post office to send a letter. After all, how could a kind-hearted person like her be willing to let the factory hire an unqualified employee? Sigh. She learned all this from Director Li, let Li Yijun calculate with her father. The train station is here, get off quickly. Lin Yijun was already sitting in an outer position, and naturally jumped out of the car as soon as it stopped. It's still a while before the departure, so I'll go and send the letter and bring out some things. Comrade, hello, I'm sending a letter. The window staff lazily picked up the letter, glanced at it, and then threw it back. Auntie, did you write the wrong address in this letter? This is the address of a food factory in Beijing. The aunt mentioned by the staff, Lin Yijun, who had disguised herself, came in handy with a few gray-colored clothes. Comrade, I remember correctly. I'm going back to my hometown right now, but I accidentally took the key of my daughter's house. Look, the train is about to leave, so I can't miss it. Strange things happen every year, and this is just an example right now. The staff brought the letter back and stamped it, saying, Auntie, 2 cents. Lin Yijun reached out his trembling hand and took out 2 cents from his pocket to hand to the staff. The staff will tear off a stamp and stick it on the envelope as soon as they receive the money. Hey, girl, wait a minute. The stamps under you are red and very festive. I don't know if they're for sale or not. I'll take them back to my little grandson so that I can add some celebration during the Chinese New Year. The staff stopped moving their hands, but the old lady was quite old and her eyes were quite good. It's also good to sell it, and you can get more bonuses. The staff began to push hard and said, Auntie, you have such a good eye. This is a newly released edition by the country. You can see that there are 80 copies in one edition, and it's a good deal to buy it back, even if this edition costs 200 yuan. If you want to buy it separately, it's not that cost-effective. Before the meeting, the old lady's face was full of confusion and pain, and she gritted her teeth and pulled out a pile of tickets. Girl, give it to me. There's only one little grandson in my family who likes these things. The staff quickly took the money and counted it, handing all the stamps in their hands to Lin Yijun. Auntie, you have taken them, they said when the hunched figure emerged from the post office door. The staff chatted with the colleagues who came to receive the letters behind about this fun. Hey, let me tell you, just now there came an old lady who called her a distressed grandson. She immediately bought all the stamps we couldn't sell before. I'm quite confused. Sending a letter to the capital before I leave is not a waste of money. The colleague who came here was reminded of a strange person she had encountered this morning when she said this. I also met someone this morning, who is still a soldier. I went to Northeast China and even sent letters to Northeast China. Don't you think this is a waste of money? The money is too much to burn. This person, I won't tell you anymore, I have to hand over the shift. Okay. I also need to quickly move this letter away. Chapter 7. Boarding the train. You are listening at novel full.audio. Fortunately, Lin Yijun didn't hear the staff member's words, otherwise she could have opened her empty pockets on the spot to show her. Which wealthy person can burn it anyway? It won't be her. Lin Eucalyptus used the cover of the large package in her hand to put the newly purchased stamp into the space. When she was hoarding goods crazily during that period, her mind was not idle, remembering various items that would increase in price in the future and key time points. After all, since two spacetimes are parallel, there may be similarities. I'm using it now. Lin Yijun tugged at the wig and headscarf on her head, grabbed the large package in her hand, and squeezed into the crowd in the waiting hall. Sister, Auntie, we have top-quality white sugar here. Do you want it? Comrade, do you need beer? It's almost Chinese New Year and we can't buy any drinks at home. Hey girl, auntie, you have a kind face. If you really want to buy this honey, this bottle only weighs 2 pounds. You can take it for 10 yuan. The crowd is crowded, with a mix of good and bad. So the people patrolling in the hall are also turning a blind eye. While earning money, Lin Yijun saw 3 people wearing military uniforms from afar, one of whom seemed to be walking towards him, and couldn't help but hesitate. Forget it, forget it. I've earned enough. Going is the best strategy. On the other end of the hall, Fang Qi saw the figure disappearing rapidly from the crowd and sighed with some regret. This old lady runs quite fast. I see she seems to have a lot of good things in her hands, and she's thinking of buying more. Lin Jianqing, who was sitting behind Fang Qi, looked at the big bags at his feet and couldn't help but twitch his lips. Lieutenant Colonel, you have brought enough things with you, really don't need them, and I'm recovering well now. Where can I use you and the battalion commander to take me back? Fang Qi turned to look at her comrade's still pale face and said, Jianqing, should I find a mirror for you to look at your current face? If you want me to tell you, you should rest in the hospital for a while longer. You must be discharged, but Zebo actually agreed. You should know that the reason why Lin Jianqing was so seriously injured was largely to protect his comrades from retreating safely, and to cover up for everyone's retreat. It's exactly the same as Zeger. If Zeger hadn't been knocked out by the explosion, he wouldn't have known who was behind the mat. Although Lin Jianqing was rushed to the best hospital in Kyoto after being injured, his injuries were too severe. A few capable people have said that now this person can stand here and speak because of his strong physique. If it were someone else, it might be retirement has become an inevitable choice for Lin Jianqing. Fang Qi couldn't help but look at the man next to him with one arm hanging. Zebo must also be very self-blaming in his heart, otherwise he wouldn't have been wearing a tie and would have personally sent Lin Jianqing back to his hometown. Nowadays, none of the 3 of them are without injuries on their bodies. Lin Jianqing's eyes were filled with a hint of longing and a deep sense of reluctance. It's almost Chinese New Year, and this year I happen to have time. I'll go home and spend a good New Year with my family. And he knows his own body well. Staying in the hospital is useless, on the contrary, he will be even more reluctant to let go of these comrades who have gone through life and death, as well as the troops he loves. Lin Jianqing has not been at home for several years since joining the military, and the amount of time he spends at home each year is also limited. As the eldest son and grandson, he did not fulfill any responsibility at all. Fortunately, there is Jianjin with my parents, and there are Sanshu and Jianhua with my mistress. Otherwise Lin Jianqing couldn't help but sigh. It's just that coming to Kyoto this time was purely an accident. Otherwise, I could have inquired about Asi's news for Uncle San and Jianhua. What? It's related to the wound. Zebo, who had been standing on the side, kept observing Lin Jianqing's condition. He was injured too badly and it would take several years to recover. So when Lin Jianqing proposed to retire and go home, he was the first to agree. According to Lin Jianqing's personality, knowing that he could no longer return to the army, he would definitely not be willing to rely on the army to stay in Kyoto for rest. But Zebo couldn't let his comrades go back alone with injuries. I came here to watch him, and secondly to help Lin Jianqing retire and find employment. Lin Jianqing received a second-class merit this time, and he should be able to get a good job with his previous merits. Zebo is just trying to ensure the implementation of these things. Lin Jianqing immediately wanted to pat his chest to show that he was okay, but when he saw the sharp eyes of his battalion commander, his hand still didn't dare to lift it. It's okay, I just thought of forgetting to inquire about my cousin. My third uncle and younger brother have been thinking about it. Fang Qi became interested and leaned on Lin Jianqing's shoulder, saying, Do you still have a cousin? I've only heard of a few of your younger brothers from you. If you want, Zebo and I can help you inquire. Fang Qi wisely did not ask Lin Jianqing why this cousin was in Kyoto, and there was nothing difficult to say about her family. Lin Jianqing's military district is in the southwest, and every time he passes by Kyoto, he can only slowly inquire. When that woman took Osei away, she only said she wanted to go to Kyoto. But now that more than a decade has passed, who knows if that woman has gone to Kyoto or not, and Kyoto has such a large annual flow of people. But he can't break Uncle's last hope. So as long as Lin Jianqing passes by Kyoto, he will definitely go and inquire. That's also why he knew that the battalion commander and deputy battalion were both from Kyoto and had been holding back from mentioning this matter. I thought I would wait until the next military district competition to help third uncle inquire, but now I don't have a chance. Just let him trouble his brothers for the last time. He doesn't want this to become a lifelong regret for Uncle San. Then please trouble the battalion commander and deputy battalion. My cousin's name is Lin Yijun, she is 16 years old this year, and her birthday is January 25th. Her mother's name is. After leaving the crowd, Lin Yijun found a corner and changed her attire, carrying a slightly swollen old luggage bag back to the educated youth. Comrade Lin, have you returned? The person who spoke was Sun Hongshan, the temporary leader among the educated youth. Lin Yijun shook the luggage in her hand and said, "My family has brought me something, I'll go and pick it up." Sun Hongshan nodded without any doubt about the reason. He said, how could someone go to the countryside with just a backpack on their back? What kind of ruthlessness does that family have? Little did she know that in her original fate, Lin Yijun only carried a bag and went to the unfamiliar northwest alone. Sun Hongshan picked up his backpack and said, "Comrade Lin, please sit here." "Thank you." Lin Yijun was not polite to Sun Hongshan. After all, it was a bit tiring to sit on a hard-seat train in this era. It would be best to sit and rest while there are still more spacious seats available now. Lin Yijun rested with her luggage, closed her eyes for a while before being pushed awake by the people around her. "Comrade, it's time to get on the bus." The speaker was a girl about the same age as Lin Yijun. She wore 2 fried dough twists braids and her eyes were as clear as autumn water. She was very shy. If it weren't for the two being close together, she wouldn't have been able to hear the girl's voice. "Thank you." "No, you're welcome." The two of them each picked up their luggage and followed the crowd towards the entrance of the station. Li Xiaoyu looked at the girl standing in front of her, with a shallow smile on her face. Grandma is right, face is born from the heart. This comrade is good-looking and very polite. Finally, it's up. Lin Yijun and Li Xiaoyu couldn't help but nod in agreement. Just now, if it weren't for Sun Hongshan driving ahead and the other 2 boys padding behind, they don't know when they'll be able to squeeze in. There were 6 educated youth who went to the countryside together this time, twice as many as they went to the countryside on the 25th. Oh, no, it should be 3 times. It happened to be 3 men and 3 women, and the one who just started to sigh was a girl with short hair. "Hello, my name is Jiang Shui, I am 17 years old." Sun Hongshan stuffed his backpack under his seat and said, "Sun Hongshan, 22 years old." "Lin Eucalyptus, 16 years old." "My name is Li Xiaoyu, I am 15 years old." "Wang Jiwen, 21 years old." "My name is Ding Shiya, I'm 20 years old." We shouldn't be in the same place as the capital, so it's fate to be able to join forces and go to the countryside. Wang Jiwen helped the glasses on the bridge of his nose and remained silent. He didn't even know Ding Shiya before, but who knew that when they were in the waiting hall just now, he just politely introduced himself, and this kid insisted on chatting with him until he got on the bus. Wang Jiwen made up his mind not to answer, but to his surprise, Sun Hongshan took the conversation and said, "Yes, we will all be educated youth from the same place in the future." As expected, Ding Shiya grabbed Sun Hongshan and started chatting incessantly. Wang Jiwen couldn't help but show a hint of pain on his face. Here we go again. Lin Yijun looked at the people in front of her with different personalities, her heart filled with hope and a faint warmth. Fate has begun to change, isn't it? Chapter 8. Eating with Water. You are listening at novel full.audio. The train taken by Lin Yijun starts from Kyoto and ends in Tong'an County, Beiping City, Jie Province. But this group of them went to the countryside in the Red Star commune below Tong'an County, so they still need to wait for someone from the commune to pick them up after arriving in Tong'an County. To be honest, Lin Yijun's memories of living in Linjia village are only fragments. When it's icy and snowy, she would take a small hand and go ice skating on the ice. When the mountains are full of red leaves, there will be a big brother with their group of little radish heads digging wild vegetables everywhere, looking for delicious food. The hot tears that dripped on her neck when she was taken away by Wang Chunyi. The child who followed behind the car for a long time and the sound of kindness. She just can't remember anyone's appearance anymore. I can't even remember the names of my loved ones. Clearly it's ridiculous to say that neither the original Lin Yijun or the current Lin Yijun actually knows what his biological father looks like. Now she only knows that the biological father of this body is called Lin Onghua, 38 years old. There is also a younger brother named Lin Jianhua, who should be 13 years old this year, right? Lin Yijun did not write a letter to tell her father that she was going to the countryside. Firstly, she was in a hurry to go to the countryside, and even if she sent a letter, she did not know which one would arrive in Tong'an County first, so there was no need to spend this unjustified money. Secondly, the role of father is too unfamiliar to Lin Yijun. Even if memories tell her that Lin Onghua loves this daughter and has always remembered her. But there was still a hint of fear in her heart that it was just a father's last mercy for his daughter. Without hope, one will not be disappointed. Using eucalyptus. Lin Yijun woke up from her own contemplation and looked at Jiang Shui beside her. What's wrong? Jiang Shui took out an aluminum lunch box and a lacquered teapot from her backpack and said, "It's time for dinner. Let's go get some water." Lin Yijun looked at the sky outside the window and it was indeed dinner time. Lin Yijun took out the lunchbox and cup from her bag and said, "Okay." 3 girls left their seats with lunchboxes, while the remaining 3 boys helped to keep an eye on their bags and wait for them to return before changing people. Wang Jiwen looked at the 3 girls leaving with envy in his eyes. He doesn't want to stay here either. This guy surnamed Ding won't be tired. He's tired of listening. Sun Hongshan has a really good temper. Jiang Shui, along with Lin Eucalyptus and Li Xiaoyu, squeezed through the crowd and arrived at the junction of the carriage to fetch water. Due to the limited number of bathrooms on the train and the need to queue up, most people endure not drinking water at all times except when eating. Even so, getting hot water depends on luck. Coincidentally, Lin Yijun and the others managed to catch the tail of their luck. Lin Yijun stirred the remaining water in the shaker while pouring water, and then picked up a lunch box next to it that only received a small amount of hot water and filled it. Jiang Shui saw Lin Eucalyptus pouring water with a clattering sound, thinking that Lin Eucalyptus was not familiar with the situation on the train. She quickly walked over and whispered, "Eucalyptus, you poured too much water, drinking too much is easy." Lin Yijun glanced at the long queue behind her and shook the hot water kettle in her hand towards Jiang Shui and Li Xiaoyu. When will the next wave of hot water wait until the sound of water is so low? Jiang Shui and Li Xiaoyu instantly understood Lin Yijun's meaning and stood side by side to help cover her movements. I don't know how long to wait here when a few boys come to fetch water. After all, the 3 of them are also helping them keep an eye on their luggage. Eucalyptus, my place is not fully filled yet, you pour me some. I can do it too. As for the train attendant on the side, as long as no one steals the kettle, pouring more is none of her business. After pouring water, the 3 of them passed through the crowd and returned to their seats, narrowly missing the water on their hands during the journey. Finally back. We're out of water. Don't go, the 3 of you. Let's take some water. Lin Yijun distributed all the water in the cup to Ding Shiye and Sun Hongshan, while Jiang Shui and Li Xiaoyu each poured some water for Wang Jiwen. Ding Shiye quickly took a sip of the hot water in his cup and said, "Thank you. I'm thirsty." Jiang Shui took out a mantou from his bag and chewed it. Hey, everyone goes to the countryside in one place. If we hadn't been clever with eucalyptus, Xiaoyu and I wouldn't have had enough water. Li Xiaoyu on the side also nodded in agreement. Wang Jiwen soaked the dried pancakes in his bag into his lunchbox and took a bite. Next time, the three of us will go fetch water, and you will be watching your luggage from your seats. Okay, let's take turns going. Lin Yijun held her lunchbox and took advantage of the water to drink the vitamins, calcium, and collagen gummies in her hand. She silently said in her heart, let's talk more. If these people were using their own lunchboxes to fetch water, she could still squeeze back. On the train, there were many people with mixed eyes, and under the cover of her backpack, Lin Eucalyptus took out a few vegetable dumplings from the space to eat. Although there may not be much difference in appearance from ordinary vegetable dumplings, and even the color may be a bit unsightly, the filling of this vegetable dumpling has its own unique qualities. And she was sitting in a corner by the window, so unless someone was lying in front of her looking, no one would notice that what she was eating had a different meaning. Lin tasted the fragrance of eucalyptus and vegetable balls, but ignored the sympathetic and empathetic gazes from the other 5 people around him. Although everyone's current conditions are not good, after all, they are all people who want to go to the countryside. But among them, either their families make things they usually don't want to eat and bring them along, or they either take the money and buy some food to prepare themselves, or they have a conscience to discover. But ultimately, there are still some relatively good foods on hand, which are not stored for long and must be solved on the train for these 3 days and 2 nights. There was a tacit understanding and friendship between them who had previously received water, and Lin Yijun was the thinnest among them, even thinner than the 15-year-old Li Xiaoyu. So, Eucalyptus, I have a small piece of rock sugar for you. Comrade Lin, can you eat spicy food? Try making my own chili sauce at home. Even the most introverted Li Xiaoyu silently tore a piece of his cake and handed it to Lin Yijun. Lin Yijun looked at the various types of food presented in front of her, with an impulse to help her forehead, but a faint warmth also surged in her heart. She doesn't eat as badly as she looks. No need, thank you all. I'll just have this. Lin Yijun repeatedly stressed that he really had something else to eat, but he was afraid that the pot of dumplings would be damaged, so he ate this first. Several people took a yubing, deep-fried round and flat dough cake, from their bags to prove that they didn't believe him. Only then did a few people take back the food they had in their hands. Lin Eucalyptus quickly finished the remaining vegetable balls in 3, 5, and 2 parts. At present, consuming high-quality food is expensive, and our relationships have not yet reached that level. We cannot rashly accept someone's kindness. However, she was really lucky this time, and it seems that the few people she met were all pretty good. After finishing their meal, the 6 of them took turns going to the bathroom. Not long after, the train conductor loudly reminded people in the aisle that the lights were about to be turned off. Sun Hongshan also deliberately changed seats with Li Xiaoyu, allowing Li Xiaoyu to sit inside Ding Shiya and Wang Jiwen, while he sat outside Lin Yijun and Jiang Shui. It's inevitable that someone will come and go in the hallway at night, and sitting on the outermost side would be safer than a girl like Li Xiaoyu. Don't sleep too soundly at night, everyone should be more alert. Lin Yijun followed the crowd and tightly hugged her backpack. Although her important things are all in the space, with only thick clothes in her backpack and luggage bag as a cover, their train will have a stop in the middle of the night, so they are afraid that someone will be greedy for these items. Be careful and make no major mistakes. Chapter 9. Cold Light. You are listening at novel full.audio. Lin Yijun poured herself hot water with one hand and couldn't help but rub her own neck with the other. I'm really dying. The wooden bench was already sitting on, not to mention she had been sleeping for 2 days. She could hear the sound of her neck creaking. Fortunately, we can arrive at the station today. After pouring water, Lin Yijun planned to drink it before returning, and there were still many people sitting on the ground sleeping in the hallway. Carrying water back is too troublesome. At this moment, a smell of smoke drifted over from the side. Lin Yijun couldn't help wrinkling her nose. What she disliked the most was the smell of smoke. Someone came over so early to smoke. It seems that smoking addiction is quite strong. Lin Eucalyptus quickened her pace of drinking water, then calmly turned around and left the junction of the carriage. At the moment of turning around, Lin Yijun slowly exhaled a breath. She's just a person who doesn't want to sleep on a wooden bench and comes over to get a glass of water to drink. Why would I encounter a man with a knife in his arms? At first, Lin Yijun just distanced herself from the smoke because she disliked it, but her quick dodge happened to put her in a tricky position. Now the sky outside the window is just beginning to brighten. The sunlight happened to project onto the man's arms, and the knife reflected a cold light that shone into Lin Yijun's eyes. Fortunately, the man was immersed in a cigarette, and the entire connection of the carriage was shrouded in smoke by that man. Otherwise, it's not very strange to bring a knife when going out. It could be to peel a fruit, or it could be bought specifically for home. Forget it, she can't deceive herself anymore. This person would carry the knife in their arms and hide it so tightly. Anyway, it won't be a good thing. Since this person is smoking there, their seat must not be far from their carriage. Let's tell the conductor first. Lin Yijun carefully crossed the sleeping people in the aisle and searched for the train conductor one carriage after another. Finally, 2 train attendants were found handing over at the junction of the hard seat and sleeper. Zhu Meng worked the night shift all night, feeling so sleepy that he couldn't open his eyes and couldn't stop yawning while handing over to his colleagues. The night shift is finally over, I'll go back and take a nap. You go ahead, I've prepared your meal in the lunchbox. You can eat it before going to bed. Comrade, hello. I have discovered something that I would like to tell you. Upon hearing the sound, Zhu Meng turned around to look. He has some impression of this girl. She should be a rural educated youth. Comrade, what do you have to do? Zhu Meng and his colleague Suo, who came to hand over the shift, were both shocked to hear Lin Yijun's description. Zhu Meng restrained his tired expression and looked at the girl in front of him. Comrade, this matter cannot be joking. Are you sure you saw clearly that person carrying a knife? Well, but I'm not sure if that knife was a small one or. Because at that time, there was just light reflecting off the surface of the knife. Zhu Meng felt a bit tricky. If such a dangerous person really came along, there might be accomplices, and the entire train would be in danger. Suo tugged at Zhu Meng's sleeve and said, Zhu Meng, there are a few military comrades lying there. In this situation, the 2 train attendants are definitely not sure. Military comrades are definitely better at fighting than them. Zhu Meng nodded and said, Suo, take this comrade to explain to those soldiers and then go find the train conductor. I'll go take a look at carriage 18. 18 carriages, which is the carriage where Lin Yijun and his companions are located. Suo's concern couldn't be hidden in his eyes. Then be careful. Comrades, come with me. Okay. Lin Yijun nodded and followed Suo towards the hard sleeper carriage. And Zhu Meng also took out a short stick from the lounge and hid it in his sleeve. If there was really something, at least he had a handy weapon. Although the 3 of Zebo were sleeping on the train, they still maintained their instinctive alertness. Even Lin Jiancheng, who has not recovered from his serious injuries, is still there. They are accustomed to using the shortest depth of sleep to recover their energy and can wake up promptly from deep sleep at any time. So when the 2 footsteps stopped in their place, the 3 of them coincidentally opened their eyes. Zebo and Lin Jiancheng slept in the lower bunk, and Zebo saw a train conductor and a young girl at the first sight. Comrade, could you please wake up and come out with us for a moment? Suo asked Fang Qi, who was sleeping on the middle bunk, because one of the 2 sleeping on the lower bunk was hanging his arm, and the other was pale, indicating that he was injured. Let's find someone who looks healthy and can fight. Okay, wait for me a moment. Fang Qi put on her coat and walked lightly down the middle bunk, following the two towards the other end of the train attendant lounge. After a moment, Fang Qi called Zebo over with a slightly solemn expression on his face. "Brothers A, that's probably the situation. The next station will arrive in 30 minutes, but currently only Comrade Lin has seen that person." Zebo couldn't help but feel that the situation was a bit tricky after listening to Fang Qi's report. Lin Yijun did not expect that this later, handsome and easy-going man was the leader of several people. If he doesn't wear military uniform, he really can't tell he's a soldier. "Comrade, can you take me to find the person you see? My teammates and I will ensure your safety. At present it is most important to find the suspect, but apart from the girl in front of him, no one else has seen what the person looks like, so Zebo is also prepared for what to do if the person in front of him refuses." Lin Yijun nodded and said, "Sure, it's just that you guys wear military uniforms and go over. She doesn't want to have a bomb hidden around her that could explode at any moment, even if it's a dud." "Wait a moment. Comrade Zwa, could you please inform the conductor so that we can go over and confirm the situation first?" Zwa quickly nodded and said, "Okay, I'll go over now." God bless, this must be a farce. After Zwa left, Zebo and the others had to go back to change clothes, while Lin Yijun wisely stayed in the lounge and waited for them to come back. "A hard sleeper. Built, you stay here. Fang Qi and I will go and take a look." Lin Jianqing has no objection, he is aware of his own body. If something really happens, he will actually be of great help when he passes by. "Yes, Captain." Zebo untied the gauze and bandage on his hand, changed into casual clothes, and returned to the lounge with Fang Qi. Lin Yijun suppressed her desire to inquire when she saw only two people coming. Ask less and know less, knowing more is actually a burden. Lin Yijun walked towards box 18 with the two people behind her. Zebo, who was walking ahead, decided to first discuss with the girl behind him. "Comrade Lin, if you encounter the person you're talking about later, just turn around and walk towards the back. Just tell my teammate's location in a low voice." "Okay." Zebo's expression softened a bit, and the girls simply cooperated with their work, indeed saving some unnecessary trouble. Now some people have already woken up, so the three of them walking in the carriage doesn't seem so abrupt, except for their outstanding looks. When they arrived at carriage 18, the other companions were still asleep, and Lin Yijun walked over softly. But as I walked, I felt a little uneasy. Because she never saw Zhu Meng, who was supposed to come here for patrol. "Until, Zij, what do you want to eat later?" "I want to eat meat buns." Suddenly, his right hand was pulled by someone, and Zebo restrained his reaction of wanting to shake off. Because the girl who suddenly approached him flashed a hint of panic on her face, although she concealed it quickly. Zebo didn't shake off the girl's hand and said, "So what do you want to drink?" On the last row on the left, there are three people facing us. The one sitting at the innermost is the train conductor who was supposed to patrol earlier, and the one in the middle is holding a knife. Zebo glanced casually, and the person at the innermost corner fell asleep. The uniform he was wearing was covered by a cotton jacket, and the situation was unclear. Also, the person outside is the robber on the recently released wanted list. A few days ago, while their troops were practicing in the deep mountains, they saved a seriously injured person. When he returned to the army to help Lin Jianqing handle the discharge procedures, he also heard some information from his comrades. Smuggling goods is illegal, but robbery and murder are also of a heinous nature. The Sichuan Provincial Public Security Bureau immediately drew portraits based on the driver's description and planned to arrest these robbers, but the news has not yet spread very quickly. The robbers were fierce, with hostages in their hands, and the train was crowded with people. Zebo felt a bit more solemn in his heart. Fang Qi, who fell to the end, looked at the hands that the two people in front had been holding, almost not holding his expression. He knows Zij will not be without discretion, so it can only indicate that the situation has changed. But Feng Qi couldn't help but look at the two hands in front of him. Zij, this is really an exception. Lin Yijun didn't know what Feng Qi was thinking behind her, and she didn't mean to take advantage of the handsome guy. The key is that the person holding the knife is looking at them. She doesn't know whether to let go or not. Chapter 10. Breakfast. You are listening at novel full.audio. Lu Shu sat next to his brother sleeping soundly. He doesn't have a big brother who can handle it well, but he has a lot of strength. So the big brother does whatever he says. Lu Shu doesn't care why he suddenly wants to go back to his hometown. He doesn't care where he goes with his elder brother. Sitting in the middle, Lu Gao touched the dagger in his arms, and his eyes couldn't help but reveal a hint of ferocity. Lu Gao, along with a few colleagues, did a big job this time and planned to bring the money he received and his younger brother back to his hometown. The goods in the convoy they hijacked this time were all rare goods such as cigarettes and alcohol, which happened to coincide with the Spring Festival, so it was not particularly difficult to get rid of them. In fact, when Lu Gao saw the goods on the car, he regretted it a bit. After all, the means to attract so many rare goods were definitely not simple. But the driver actually saw his silly little brother's appearance, so he couldn't keep him. Lu Gao led his brothers to become immortal and directly threw the driver's body into the deep mountains and forests. This winter is a time of food shortage. How could the wild beasts in the mountains not eat the meat on their mouths? There is no right answer to death. Lu Gao took people to many places to get rid of all the goods on hand, and then sent his brothers away with money. He took his brother Lu Shu on the train back to his hometown. Lu Gao has never read a book, but he has been outside for so many years without being caught, which shows that he is also a smart person. In my hometown, it snows heavily in late winter. But he has been used to playing in the mountains since he was young, and he took his brother to hide in the mountains. Who could find them? After the hype, he told his younger brother about his wife. When the younger brother's wife gave birth to several chubby sons, Lu Gao could be considered as having an explanation for his deceased father and mother. So no matter who wants to obstruct them, he will not hesitate. Lu Gao has not figured out how the melon egg next to him discovered them. If he had this ability, he wouldn't have succeeded in the attack in one go, lying here half dead. In the past few days, he has also roughly figured out the patrol routes and times of the passengers. Last night, a group of newcomers got on the train and happened to be able to fish in troubled waters. Later, when the big tree wakes up and leads people to change clothes, we can almost get by. Lu Gao touched the dagger in his arms while looking around. And the three people who walked towards him had excellent looks. How could they not attract Lu Gao's attention? Lu Gao passed over Zebo at the front, but he was just a good-looking little white face. His gaze fell on the figure behind Zebo. I have to praise Zebo for his outstanding acting skills, as he became the team leader at a young age. If Lin Yijun had not known in advance, he would not have thought this guy was a soldier. His harmless appearance was more like a cultured scholar. Lin Yijun felt Lu Gao's gaze fixed on him, and his cold hair couldn't help but stand up. The scrutiny in her eyes made her feel disgusted. It's like picking out goods that suit your heart. Zebo also noticed the unfriendly gaze and pulled the girl behind him directly to his side, completely covering Lin Yijun's figure. Don't be afraid. Lin Eucalyptus nodded slightly. It's better not to let go, take advantage of it. She is afraid. Lu Gao gave a cut sound. He didn't look up to it. In his first year out with his younger brother, he accidentally injured himself while fighting with someone. Later, he went to the hospital for a check-up and the doctor said it would be difficult for him to have children in his lifetime. Lu Gao was unwilling to admit that he had become a eunuch. Afterwards, whenever conditions permit, we will check and collect folk remedies for every place we go. I don't know which recipe he took wrong, but he is completely incapable. Since then, Lu Gao has completely placed all his hopes on his own younger brother. When the big deal comes, let Dashu have several more sons and adopt one under his own name. Where else can my nephew fall short? However, Dashu is not very clever and needs to find a smarter wife for him. When the wind blows, he needs to find a way to contact Red Sister and buy the smartest and most beautiful one for Dashu to come back. He can't waste the seeds of his old Lu family. That little girl just now looked pretty good, but she was too thin and didn't look like someone who could have a son. Just treat that little white face as treasure. Still eating meat buns, brother, shall we have meat buns later? Lu Gao only realized that he had accidentally expressed his thoughts earlier. Upon hearing Lu Shu's words, Lu Gao almost didn't give the back of Lu Shu's head, who had just woken up. I just think about eating all day. His brother's concern is completely unknown. On the other side, 3 people walked through the carriage and entered the dining car. Lin Yijun looked at the fragrant breakfast in front of her and couldn't help feeling a bit embarrassed. She just wants to find an excuse to report the situation, not really trying to take advantage of others. Zebo saw the girl's thoughts and gave Fang Qi a glance. Fang Qi quickly pushed the plate towards Lin Yijun. Comrade Lin, accompanying us on our patrol has been a great help to us. This morning will be considered as our thank-you gift, and you must accept it. Lin Yijun quietly rubbed her stomach. She only drank that glass of water in the morning and was already hungry, but Lin Yijun took out $1 from her pocket and handed it to the man across from her. Just now, she saw that this person had paid for the money ticket. You investigated the matter earlier to ensure the safety of our passengers. I didn't bring my ticket, so please accept this money. Zebo pondered for only a few seconds before taking the money from the girl's hand. Okay. When the robber is caught, have someone send the prize money to this comrade. Lin Yijun saw that the man had accepted the money and couldn't wait to pick up a nearby napkin, wipe her hands, and take a small bite of the steamed bun to eat. At the moment when the slightly hot meat juice spread in her mouth, Lin Yijun couldn't help but squint her eyes. Still the authentic fragrance. Lin Yijun was immersed in the joy of meat buns. Anyway, the words spoken by these 2 people around her should be secret codes or have their own decryption methods. If she doesn't understand, she won't bother herself. Fang Qi didn't expect that he would accompany Zego to send his comrades back to his hometown and still encounter robbers, and this luck was also rare. Zij, now we don't know how many pounds, people, the meat, enemy, weighs, and there are also hemp ropes tied to it, hostages in hand. This is also a concern for Zebo. Steward, give us 8 pork buns, 2 bowls of soybean milk and 4 eggs. Perhaps the heavens are all helping Zebo and the others. After Lu Gao brought Lu Shu in, he happened to sit at the dining table behind Zebo and the others. Brother, where are we staying when we go back? Lu Gao picked up a steamed bun and bit it, saying, where can we live? Lu Shu thought for a moment and realized that they had never slept before when they were outside. Lu Gao's desire to find a wife for his younger brother grew stronger as he saw Lin Yijun behind Lu Shu while eating steamed buns. I don't know if Red Sister will come to Jilin province this year, otherwise it would be really troublesome to find her. Lin Yijun felt the gaze falling on her and felt that the buns in her hand were almost no longer fragrant. Lin Yijun took a drink of soybean milk and tried to ignore the 2 men. Guilty and guilt, these 2 people are not worthy of trampling on her meat buns. By the way, when can we take action? And Zebo and Fang Qi listened quietly to the conversation behind them. Fang Qi's eyes lit up. With just these 2 people, wouldn't that be easy to catch? Zij, do you want to take action? One of them has a knife, the other is unknown, be careful. Zebo glanced at Lin Yijun, who was still eating, and decided to take action immediately. It would be difficult if the 2 were to separate before attempting to capture them. As for Comrade Lin. Xiaolin, can you help me get another breakfast over here? Lin Yijun woke up from the joy of the meat bun and reluctantly put down the bun in her hand. Okay. She's a scumbag, it's better not to interfere.